In question 8, then, we're moving on here, verse 28. Jesus was questioned a little bit more sincerely, this time by a scribe. What are the 2 greatest commandments? Who's got one?
I've got one. Love the Lord your God.
And love your neighbor.
Love your neighbor. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Chris. The B part of this question, then, defend Jesus' statement, there is no other commandment greater than these. What do you think, Mickey?
Well, all of the those 2 commandments cover all of the commandments, because the first 3 commandments have to do with our relationship with the Lord. And if we keep those, then we love the Lord with all of our heart, mind, strength, and soul. And then the last 7 cover our relationships with other people. And so if we keep those, we are loving our neighbors.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mickey. So let's go then to the 3rd day here, and we're talking good scribe, bad scribe, question 9. The scribe here in verse 32, he understood the truth of Jesus' words, made kind of an amazing statement himself, considering he was standing right there. What was it? What did he say there?
Obeying the commandments is more important than burnt offerings and sacrifices.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about that, Doug, is the fact that he was standing in the temple, which is the very place of all the sacrifices. So he was, discounting that the temple sacrifices were as important as loving the Lord our God.
Exactly. Right there in the temple.
Right.
He brings this up. It's unbelievable what he says. But then that takes us into this question 10, which is a challenge. Jesus said the scribe was not far from the kingdom. If the scribe remained to hear what Jesus taught next in the following verses, what would he have heard to help him see Jesus as Messiah and much more than just a physical descendant of David? What would he have seen there?
David called God Lord, and it was to reference that being his spiritual descendant, being Jesus' spiritual descendant, even though he was a physical descendant of David himself.
Yeah, very interesting, right? It's kind of like reverse psychology, right? He's a descendant of Jesus who was a descendant of him. All right, let's go on then to question 11. Well, Jesus complimented the scribe in verse 34. He was very critical of the behavior of the scribes as a professional group in the next verses. We often think of really terrible sins as being those of violent or perverted. But of what sins common among the scribes did Jesus want his disciples to beware?
I wrote down it was an ego thing. It was self-importance and outward displays rather than inward godliness.
Yeah. Interesting how he really puts those more, or I should say worse, than some of these really bad ones that we think of, right? Like murder and others. Thank you, Chris. How about any other take on that?
I listed a few, so I'll go through the list here real quick. Pride, arrogance, fame, greed, extortion, self-importance, pretense prayers.
All right. Thank you, guys. And then the B part of this, what might Jesus be calling into question in your life? So a little bit of a personal question, so I'll definitely take volunteers here.
Whoa, that's getting a little close to the bone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just in general think that pride, sometimes I share with people that pride is kind of like bad breath. We only detect it in other people, not ourselves. And so we always need to be aware of that in our own life.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Daniel.
I heard that one before.
But it's a good
It kind of comes on you like bad breath,
It does. Mm.
Well, when we're doing this study, we can't tell if we each have bad breath.
That's true. Good.
I'm smelling a lot of coffee here.
Mm.
Certainly the beauty of a video chat, right?
Yeah.